What is up, guys? Welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. So today I have you out here on my southeastern Wisconsin food plot. I'm out here today doing a little bit of adjustments and renovation from last year to this year to get ready for this plot's second season. So for those of you who are new to the channel, this plot was a first-year food plot last year. It was formerly a paintball field. So it was pretty much just a wasteland of old debris and old bunkers and towers and stuff for that paintball field. I cleaned all of that up and turned it into a food plot. Now, last year my strategy was to put in as much food as I could, because my worry at that time was that if I didn't put in enough food, the deer were just going to graze it all down to nothing, and I would be left with just a barren wasteland going into the hunting season. Well, after year one, we know that that's not going to be a problem out here. So I actually have a few neighbors not too far away that also put in food plots, but they put in clover food plots. So those clover food plots right now this time of year are absolutely booming, and I'm sure the deer are hammering them. Well, what that does for me is it takes all the pressure off of my food plot that is geared towards being the most attractive during the fall hunting season. So my neighbors hold the deer herd in this area during the summer on those clover plots, while I can get my plot established. My fall plants have all summer to grow without a ton of browse pressure. And then come fall, when that clover is deteriorating and my fall plot is peaking at its highest point, the deer will then shift their movement to my plot because it's the most attractive food source in the area at that time. So what I'm out here doing today is reshaping the food plot. So I realized that I didn't need that big of a food plot, but the shape it was in was not ideal. So what I'm doing is I'm taking roughly a square shaped food plot that had like a triangle of the corner cut off of it, and I'm reshaping it into a boomerang shape. Now, I talk in my other videos about why this is very advantageous, but I'll go over it again quickly in this one. So if you're on either side of that boomerang, the deer cannot see each other because there's cover in the middle. Now, what would happen is if these are does over here and this buck wants to come out to check them out, he's got to walk all the way out to the middle of the boomerang to see these does over here. Or if there's no does there at all, he still has to come out to the middle of the boomerang. Well, that's exactly where my stand is set up on this plot. So if a buck comes from either direction, he's got to come and stand all the way right in front of the blind in order to check out the entire plot and make sure there's no does there that he wants to go check out. So that's what I'm doing today. I planted some shrubs already. I transplanted some red osier dogwood and some box elder trees. We're going to see if those take off. Hopefully they do. I did grab some water out of the creek and gave them a good drink already, so that hopefully they do survive. I also took a bunch of box elder seeds and threw them down as well. I have a fence up around them so that the deer don't browse them down. Now, I'm not worried really that they would. Like I said, my neighbors are holding the deer herd in the area right now. But just as an extra precaution, I threw up a fence to reshape sort of the line of movement I do want the deer to take through the area, but also to give those shrubs that are just starting out a chance to get going. Now, I also did put some red osier dogwood clones in some 5-gallon buckets with water, and I also put some growth hormone in there, and I've been trying to get those cuttings now to take off, which they did all spring, and I'll eventually plant those out here as well. I've also started some box elder saplings from seeds this spring as well, and so I can transplant those out here to fill this in as well. So this whole area out here, eventually I hope to get it to be a thick, dense browse, but also a thick, dense cover and a screening. So it's going to be a mix of red osier dogwood. I think there's some yellow twig in there as well, and then box elder trees to basically make this thick, nasty, entangled web of branches that the deer aren't going to really want to move through, but they will browse on the edges of it, and then they will follow along the edge of it, because deer do use edge to travel. And I did a video on that. I'll link the card up here so you guys can check that one out as well if you want to. But what I'm trying to get is the edge for the deer to follow of those shrubs, but also the browse, but also the screening so that they can't see the entire plot at the same time. All of this put together should make this plot a very successful plot. Now, this is something when we start talking about planting shrubs and trees, we're talking the long haul here. I'm not expecting this to be immediately successful this season. This is maybe more of a 5-year plan, let's say, but the more shrubs I can get started in there, the more box elder I can get started in there, the better, the thicker that's going to be. Plus, it's also providing that browse for them too, just in addition to those leafy greens that are on the plot as well. I also did a video on my plans for redesigning this on the whiteboard, so if you guys want to see sort of the plan view instead of the down here in person view of what I'm talking about, I'll link that card up here as well, so you guys can go check that one out if you'd like as well. Now, I've never used this fencing before. It's supposed to be for keeping deer out of stuff like this. I don't know how well it'll work. It's been up for a couple nights already, and the deer have been out here and they haven't run into it, so they must be able to see it. But I have read in the comments of it that the deer just plow right through it, and I can imagine that if you were trying to use it to like completely block off a trail, that yeah, maybe they would just plow through it and knock it down. But I have a feeling that how I'm using it and just kind of, you know, guiding the deer a slightly different direction, that they'll just kind of follow that edge just like they would if these shrubs were grown up as edge as well. So I'll link that netting down in the comments if you guys want to go check that out. I'll let you guys know too in the future of how it does for me, if the deer do just knock it down or if it stays standing and they just re-guide their deer trail right along the edge of it. And I don't know how long I'm going to have to keep that netting up. If I keep it up all season, like into the hunting season, to keep them using that edge, I might, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the mature bucks are really not going to like it out here and are going to avoid it if it's up. So I may have to take it down. I'll keep watching my trail cameras and see what happens, but I'll probably take it down if that's the case for the hunting season. And then of course the deer are just going to wind through the shrubs then, because they're not big and thick enough. Hopefully this summer they do gain some more growth and get bigger. I do know that if you cut red osier dogwood that's established, it has an established root base off right at the ground, you can get as much as 2 to 3 feet of growth in just one growing season. So I'm hoping that I do get some additional growth out of these, but now that I did transplant them, I know that they're going to have to rebuild their root structure first before they can put whatever nutrients they're getting into like growth above the ground. So we'll see how they do, and year after year I'll continue to just fill these in and keep it going, and every year I'll throw more box elder seeds out there so I can keep that sort of continued growth and different age classes of plant in there as well. And so what I also did was I put the biggest plant sort of in the middle of where the full out structure is going to be, and I have seeds out on the end, mature plants in the middle, intermediate saplings in the intermediate area. And so I'm going to kind of form this like structure that way as well, where I have the mature plants holding down my core with those saplings and stuff coming up on the edges. That also allows all of them to get some sunlight. A lot of these shrubs I pulled out of some pretty shaded out areas. They're starting to get choked out, so they should flourish now that they're out in the full sunlight, as long as we continue to get them some water. And I can always keep coming out here and grab buckets of water out of the creek and water them that way as well, if that'll keep them alive a little bit longer and get them established. So if you guys feel like you're getting some value out of this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so we can really continue to grow this community. I know we've been losing hunter numbers year after year, and a way to really try to turn that around and get more people into this is on a platform like this, because the younger generation is coming on a platform like this to learn about these things. They're not buying the magazines and the books and such that maybe the older generation did. So we really kind of got to shift where this information is, and a way to help grow the community is to subscribe, like, share videos like this so that we can share them with more people and continue to grow this community on this platform. And so one of the other things I want to include with this renovation that I'm doing for year 2 of this food plot is the corners of it. Like I said, I wanted to make it into a boomerang shape. So what that's going to end up doing is cutting off those corners where the tip of the boomerang or the leading edge of the boomerang is. So in one corner, I'm planning on planting a pollinator blend, and I'm going to include some sunflowers in that as well, because I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a ton of doves flying around today, and those sunflowers are going to really draw those doves in come early September when that early season dove opens. And so I'll be able to do a little bit of dove hunting out here as well before we're really kicking into the deer season. And then in my other corner, I'm going to end up planting a little bit of corn, because I want that corn to act as a screen more than a food attractant. so that my switchgrass in that corner can get established. So again, I've talked about this in other videos, but my switchgrass did horribly out here last year because we had such a bad drought. Now I did get maybe 2/3 of it to come up. It didn't get very tall, but it at least established those roots that first year. But where I needed it the most on that other third, it just didn't get growing. So I've been out here already. I sprayed it. I got everything killed off. I frost seeded this past winter. So that switchgrass should hopefully get established this year in that other corner. But if it doesn't, or because it's only first year switch, I'll still have that corn there to act as a screen as well. So I'm going to have like a really good diversity out here. I'm also going to have to keep in mind though that last year I planted brassicas on half of the plot, and I planted beans, peas, and oats on the other half, and there was a little bit of buckwheat mixed in there as well. That was an accident, but it actually ended up working out pretty well for me. But what I need to keep in mind is you can't plant brassicas in the same part of your plot like 3 years in a row. I don't even like to do it 2 years in a row. I like to rotate year after year. So I'm going to have to think about, now that this food plot's a different shape, I'm going to have to keep in mind where those brassicas were in the old shape of the plot versus where I'm going to put them in this year. So what I was actually thinking of doing is almost doing 2 strips of food through the boomerang, and that'll actually minimize that one area of the strip that had brassicas in it last year. Like I said, 3 years is really what you don't want to do. So I'm going to see how 2 years of brassicas in that one little section actually compares to fresh soil for those brassicas in the rest of the plot. But what you guys really do want is diversity in your food plot. So like I said, I'm going to be bringing them beans, peas, oats, maybe some residual buckwheat, and then a brassica blend too, which has several species of different brassicas in it. Then there's also going to be some corn out here, and then there's of course going to be that pollinator blend, which I don't think they're going to be too attracted to. But there's all of those different crops out here, and that's something you really want to focus on, because in any given week of the season, one of those specific plantings in those mixes might be what the deer are most attracted to in the area. And that's how I'm able to make this food plot the #1 food attraction in the area, even though my neighbors have food plots as well, because they have clover. And here in Wisconsin, as the temperature starts to drop, that clover starts to deteriorate in attractiveness to the deer. Now, yeah, if you're in the middle of the woods up north and you put it in, they're still going to be attracted to it because their other options are not that great. But down here in southeastern Wisconsin, if you put in a high quality fall focused food plot, you're going to draw those deer to it because it is the #1 food attraction in the area, even if your neighbors have clover food plots at that time. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.